The scent of damp earth and bruised mint rises from a field that has forgotten the touch of iron. Here, in the hollow chest of a 14th-century dawn, the world is a palette of bruised purples and charcoal grays. There is no roar of engines here, no grinding of gears to announce the arrival of the day, only the soft, wet snap of willow and the heavy breath of a man who knows the soil as a lover knows a face. He does not reach for a hammer or a nail to mark his territory. Instead, he kneels in the mud, his fingers scarred and stained by the juice of the land, and begins the ancient work of weaving. He is crafting the quickset, a boundary that does not divide the world, but invites it in. Unlike the cold, jagged wire or the dead, stacked stone of the future, this fence is alive. It is a tapestry of pulsing sap and sleeping thorns, a barrier that breathes. As his calloused palms guide the supple branches into a tight, interlocking braid, he is not merely building a wall, he is planting a lung. This hedge will filter the screaming winds of winter and provide a sanctuary for the linnet and the thrush, creating a choir within the thorns. To a modern eye, this man appears primitive, a ghost of a forgotten poverty, but his hands hold a sophistication we have traded for a shallow efficiency. He works with the slow patience of a cathedral builder, understanding that his labor will outlive his name. As the first lick of frost begins to weep into the thick wool of his tunic, a profound silence settles over the furrowed rows. He understands a secret that has been bled out of the modern world, that a farm is not a factory, and the earth is not a machine to be plundered. To him, the field is a sacred geometry of interlocking lives, where the worm, the root, and the weather are all parishioners in a temple of survival. But this harmony is fragile, held together by the same sweat that now stings his eyes. Even as he weaves life into the boundary, a shadow lingers at the edge of the woods, a reminder that the land gives nothing without a price. For as the sun climbs higher, casting long skeletal shadows across the quickset, the gentle peace of the planting begins to shift toward a more grueling necessity. The rhythmic thwack of the wooden flail strikes the floor like a heartbeat echoing through a hollow chest. In the suffocating stillness of the great barn, each blow sends a shudder through the ancient timber frame, shaking loose the ghosts of previous harvests. Here, in the golden gloom of the village common, the air is thick, not with the acrid smoke of industry, but with the sweet, choking dust of sun-dried rye and the scent of a patience that spans centuries. A man stands ankle-deep in the chaff, his muscles burning, his eyes fixed on the grain that represents the narrow, trembling line between life and the shroud. To the modern world, this is a scene of back-breaking drudgery, but to the medieval soul, it is a desperate liturgy of survival. Beneath this labor lies a deeper, quieter wisdom, a covenant with the dirt itself. Long before the arrival of synthetic poisons and chemical salts, the farmer looked to the humble vetch and the creeping bean as sacred healers. They understood that the earth, like the human spirit, can be bled dry by constant demand. While we see an empty, unplanted field as a failure of productivity, a waste of space and time, they saw the fallow as a holy necessity. They watched as the nitrogen fixers, the clover and the pulse, whispered life back into the exhausted clay, knitting the soil together with invisible threads of vitality. It was a recognition of a cosmic law that the earth requires rest as much as the laborer, and to take without giving is to invite the famine that waits at every door. As the sun shifts, sending long skeletal fingers of light through the cracks in the barn walls, the dust begins to settle, coating the farmer's skin like a layer of pale ash. He pauses, leaning his weight against the flail, his breath ragged in the silence. He is a part of a slow, invisible pulse, a world that understands the grace of waiting for a rebirth that cannot be hurried. But even as the soil heals in the quiet of the fallow, the belly of the village remains a fickle master. The healing of the land is a slow alchemy, and as the shadows lengthen across the common, a new hunger begins to stir, not for the grain of the field, but for the minerals of the earth that lie hidden beneath the mud and the marl. The agonizing groan of an ungreased axle slices through the mist of the valley, a sound like a giant's teeth grinding in the damp morning air. Emerging from the white veil is a heavy oaken wain, its massive wheels caked in a thick, slate-colored sludge, the marl, pulled from the sunless depths of a forgotten pit. This is not mere dirt, it is the ancient fat of the earth, a prehistoric gift recovered by the sweat of broken backs. In a world where nothing is wasted because everything is precious, the detritus of the sea and the chalky bones of the hills are not pollutants to be discarded. They are a holy ointment, a thick and pungent salve applied to the land's recurring wounds of hunger. A young girl follows in the wake of the cart, her small frame swallowed by a tunic of coarse, undyed wool. Her feet are bare, stained a deep, bruised blue by the cold clay, yet she moves with a strange, rhythmic grace. From a woven basket, she scatters a mixture of crushed seashells and wood ash, her hand arcing through the air in a gesture that mirrors a priest's blessing over a kneeling congregation. This is the alchemy of the muck heap, a complex and deeply localized science of fertility that understood the marriage of the mineral and the biological. They did not seek to dominate the soil with the violent, fleeting hit of a laboratory spray. They sought to nourish its soul, feeding the dark kingdom beneath their feet so that it might, in turn, feed the shivering kingdom above. Today we stand over hollowed lands, our industrial greed having traded this slow, enduring health for a shallow chemical sugar high that leaves the spirit unmoored and the dirt dead. We have forgotten the girl in the mist and the wisdom of the shell. As the wain disappears back into the gray curtain, the sound of the creaking wood fades, replaced by a biting mountain wind. The struggle for fertility is a quiet war. But as the seasons turn and the stores of grain begin to dwindle in the granary, the focus shifts from the health of the mud to the very preservation of the seed itself. A tiny, sleeping vessel that carries the weight of every generation's hope against the coming frost. In the suffocating dimness of a smoke-stained cottage, where the walls weep with the soot of 1,000 winter fires, an elder's hand trembles over a simple wooden bowl. His fingers, gnarled like the roots of an ancient yew and mapped with the scars of 60 harvests, trace the ridges of a handful of seeds. To a modern eye, this is mere debris, shriveled, uneven, and chaotic. But in the amber flicker of the hearth, these seeds are revealed as maslins, tiny living vessels of ancestral memory. Each grain carries the whisper of a grandfather's survival and a mother's prayer, a biological inheritance more precious than the gold locked in the Lord's counting house. The philosophy of the maslin is a deliberate riot of life, a defiant rejection of the singular. While we today demand the sterile perfection of a single crop, the medieval mind knew the treachery of the clouds. They sowed wheat and rye together in a single furrow, a marriage of strength and endurance. They understood that if the wheat shriveled under the relentless lash of a weeping summer, the hardy rye would find its footing in the cold, biting clay. It was a shifting tapestry of survival, an insurance policy written in the language of the soil and the salt of human sweat. There is a profound humility in this diversity. It is an admission that man cannot control the sky, only prepare a wide enough net to catch whatever mercy falls from it. We have traded this rugged resilience for a fragile uniformity, standing over vast, silent monocultures that wait, shivering, for a single blight to bring the world to its knees. We have lost the wisdom of the mix, the safety of the tangled root. As the elder carefully pours the grains back into their leathern pouch, the sound is like dry rain, a haunting reminder of what is at stake when the safety net is torn. The cottage grows cold as the fire sinks into white ash, and the mind wanders from the sheltered hearth to the vast dark edges of the world beyond the village walls. For if the seed is the soul of the farm, then the forest is its wild, beating heart, a place where the boundaries of law and nature blur under the shadow of the great oaks. The bronze bells of the abbey toll across the valley, their iron tongues striking a rhythm that resonates in the very marrow of the village. It is a summons not to prayer, but to the forest, a signal that the hour of the commoner's right has arrived. As the heavy mist clings to the heather, a gate is unlatched, and a flood of swine surges toward the dark, inviting hem of the woods. Here, the edges of the forest belong to no king and no crown. For this fleeting season, the ancient oaks are the providence of the poor. This is the time of pannage, a sacred window when the hierarchy of man bows to the older laws of the grove, and the survival of the winter is found in the falling of a nut. Beneath the cathedral canopy of oak and beech, the air is thick with the scent of damp moss and the sweet fermented earth of autumn. The sound is a symphony of the wild, the sharp crackle of dried leaves, and the rhythmic rooting of snouts as the pigs feast upon the carpet of acorns and mast. To the modern mind, these were wastelands, unplowed and unproductive, but to the medieval eye, the forest was a vertical granary of staggering complexity. It was a sophisticated integration of life that our modern fences have violently severed. The pigs did not merely eat, they cleared the forest floor of toxins that would sicken the deer and the cattle, tilling the earth with their strength, turning the forest's excess into the village's winter fat. A lone shepherd leans against a mossy trunk, his silhouette a ghost against the ancient bark. He watches this system of abundance with a quiet, observant reverence. A harvest that requires no fossil fuels, no steel plows, and no chemical debt. It is a world powered by the seasonal turning of the stars and the shared grace of the wild. There is a deep, forgotten logic in this stewardship, a recognition that the forest is not a resource to be stripped, but a living partner in the dance of survival. But as the last light of the sun filters through the canopy, catching the silver spray of a nearby stream, the shepherd's gaze turns toward the water. For if the forest is the granary of the wild, it is the river that carries the lifeblood of the valley, and the secrets of the water are yet to be unlocked. The sky is a weeping vault of iron gray, and the first touch of spring rain is not a blessing of warmth, but a biting, persistent reminder of winter's stubborn grip. Yet, beneath the surface of the drowned meadow, a silent transformation is being beckoned by human hands. Rainwater does not merely sit and stagnate here. It trickles and dances through a complex network of hand-dug runnels, a delicate silver embroidery stitched across the sloping emerald grass. This is the water meadow, a marvel of medieval engineering that seems to defy the very laws of the seasons. While the surrounding hills remain locked in the brown death of frost, this field is being coaxed into a premature, vibrant awakening by the subtle warmth of moving water. The farmer stands at the mouth of the sluice gate, his heavy leather boots sinking into the rich, dark silt of the valley floor. He does not carry the frantic energy of a modern builder, but the quiet, rhythmic focus of a man conducting a silent orchestra of the elements. With a wooden spade, he guides the flow, opening one vein of the earth while closing another, watching as the liquid silver spreads across the pasture like a thin, shimmering veil. It is a slow, deliberate mastery, a partnership with the river rather than a conquest over it. Where modern agriculture uses rigid pipes and concrete channels to silence the water and banish it from the land, the medieval steward invited the flood to linger. He understood that the river carries more than just water. It carries the very lifeblood of the mountains, a gift of nutrient-rich silt that would ensure his cattle could graze weeks before the rest of the world had even stirred from its slumber. In the trembling reflection of the rising flood, we see a face etched with the patience of the tide. He is not a master of a machine, but a guardian of a cycle. He knows that to fight the river is to invite disaster, but to invite it in, to let it rest upon the land, is to secure the future of the flock. As the evening mist begins to swallow the valley once more, the sound of the trickling water becomes a lullaby for the sleeping seeds. The farmer wipes the mud from his brow, his work for the day complete, but his mind is already turning toward the heavens. For if the water provides the life of the field, it is the celestial dance above that dictates the timing of the sow, and a deeper, darker mystery waits in the alignment of the stars.
The sun slips behind the jagged spine of the ridge like a dying king, leaving the valley to the mercy of a cold, creeping violet. Inside a small stone hut, the air is thick with the scent of burnt fat and damp earth. There is no electric hum here, no artificial glow to chase away the encroaching dark, only the guttering, frantic flame of a single tallow candle. By its sallow light, a tenant farmer hunches over a scrap of parchment, his shadow dancing like a specter against the rough-hewn walls. He is not counting coins or recording debts. His eyes are fixed through a narrow slit in the stone, tracking the silver ascent of the moon. To the enlightened world of the future, this is the desperate reaching of the superstitious, but to him it is a matter of life, death, and the rhythmic attunement of the soul to the celestial tides. His hands, calloused and mapped with the deep-set grime of a lifetime spent in the furrows, move with a ritualistic certainty. As he marks the moon's position to time the planting of his leeks and the turning of his soil, he acts as a conduit between the mud and the stars. He understands that the invisible pull of the heavens is as real, as heavy, and as undeniable as the weight of the iron plow he hauls through the clay. This is the cosmic clock, a deep, biological tempo that modern agriculture has dismissed as mere folklore in its frantic rush for a sterile year-round efficiency. While we have blinded ourselves with the neon glare of progress, he remains tethered to a world that breathes in time with the waxing and waning of the light, a world where the movement of a planet dictates the hunger of a village. As the candle flickers and finally dies, plunging the hut into a profound, velvet silence, the farmer does not move. He sits in the dark, listening to the wind howl through the thatch, a man who knows his place in the vast, terrifying machinery of the universe. We look back and see a life of limitation, yet in his stillness there is a connection we have severed, a sense of belonging to a story that began long before his birth and will continue long after his bones have returned to the marl. The fields outside lay sleeping under the lunar shroud, 15 lost tricks of a forgotten age buried beneath the frost. They are secrets waiting to be reclaimed, or perhaps warnings left by a ghost who once knew how to make the earth sing.